The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Jesus said, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And he said to them, 'You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right.' So they went. When he went out again at about noon and about 3 o'clock, he did the same. At about 5 o'clock, he went out and found others standing around. And he said to them, 'Why are you standing here idle all day?' They said to him, 'Because no one has hired us.' He said to them, 'You also go into the vineyard.' When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, 'Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first.' When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, 'These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat.' But he replied to one of them, 'Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do with what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Friends, if you live near a church, if you'd be so kind as to not do your yard work on Sunday morning during service times. I don't know if you all can hear that buzzing. Can you hear it? Yes. Okay. Well, I'm praying for patience today. Oh. Thank you. So the gospel lesson today challenges us to get over ourselves and to reconsider our ideas of what justice really is. And so Jesus tells one of my favorite parables. At the end of the day, a landowner calls together all his workers to be paid for their work, and he calls those who he had hired at the end of the day, about 5 o'clock in the evening, to be the first to be paid, and he gives them the same wage that he promised the workers who had started in the earliest part of the day. He doesn't just pay them the same hourly wage, he pays them the whole same amount that he is going to pay those who worked from noon and 3 and 8 in the morning even. And not surprisingly, the workers who have been laboring the longest, especially those since early in the morning, protest. Now, they're not arguing that the landowner is somehow dishonest because he has paid them what he promised he would pay them. Instead, they are protesting what they perceive to be the landowner's unfairness. Their complaint is that he has made the latecomers equal to those who had worked all day in the heat of the sun. The landowner's actions just don't jive with our understanding of fairness and justice. Our standards of fairness are based in a worldview in which resources are scarce. There isn't enough of anything to go around. And so we must mete it out in small amounts according to rules about worth and about deserving. In our economy, folks should only be given what they've earned. Handouts are looked upon disdainfully, and plans to ensure the welfare of all at the expense of others, well, they are considered anathema to the American way. We tell ourselves, must find a way to be stewards of our limited resources with some modicum of justice as we define it. In our economy, people simply are not equal, whether we like to admit it or not. That's how the world works in the economy that we have shaped. In order for someone to be at the top, someone else has to be at the bottom. Yet this parable today reminds us that God's perspective is different from ours. In God's economy, there is no scarceness of anything. Resources aren't limited, and so they don't have to be doled out carefully. God is recklessly generous. In God's economy, our rules about deserving and fairness are superseded by a model of extreme generosity. In God's economy, our truest selves are recognized, one in which all people really are equal. The landowner in the parable acts, therefore, in contrary to our expectations of fairness by wildly making all of his workers equal. In God's economy, the first and the last are equal. In God's economy, where all are redeemed sinners, no one is deserving of anything, no matter how hard one works in one's lifetime. All that we have and will have is ours only by grace. If you ask God to give you what you deserve, what you've earned, then watch out. Think of the manna and the quail the Israelites enjoyed in the wilderness. The Lord had brought them up out of slavery in Egypt, and yet they still find plenty to complain about. Oh, they say, we wish we'd stayed back in slavery because at least there we had something to eat. What ungratefulness. Yet at the same time, what an accurate picture of us. How often do we find ourselves unable to live into the many blessings of this life because we are too distracted by that which we don't have? How often do we blame God, our Creator, our Redeemer, our Sustainer, for for our unhappiness. Yet when the Israelites complained, God did not forsake them. Now, had we been in the place of God, I'm not sure we would have been nearly as gracious. Had the Israelites complained to us after we had brought them into freedom, we would probably have washed our hands of the whole situation and let those ingrates fare for themselves. But God isn't us. Thanks be to God. God's mercy and God's justice aren't limited in the way that ours are. And so when the Israelites complained, God had mercy on them. God sent manna every morning. And then when they had the gall to whine about how they were tired of that bread, God sent them flesh to eat as well. Now, our economy, as we have made it, isn't anywhere close to God's. You see, in our economy, we say there's not enough, but God says there is always more than enough. We say, fend for yourselves. God asks, what more can I give you? We say you don't deserve what you don't earn. God says that we can never deserve and never earn God's grace, and so it is given to us freely despite our undeserving. It may seem reasonable to us to order the world according to fairness based in scarcity, but it doesn't have to be that way. We might instead ask the question, when then can we stand in witness to a different way? When can we stand in witness of God's kingdom and God's economy breaking in even now, not just at some great getting up day when Jesus returns and all is honky-dory, but now, as we are agents of that kingdom, how can we bear witness to God's economy instead of ours? You know what I'm going to say next? Pledge cards. How elegant a transition. Well, you know, it's the business we're in, and it's the way we work. And it's a joy and challenging opportunity that comes our way every year. Because we should have all received our pledge cards for the ministry budget of 2018 in the mail this past week. And if you didn't, that doesn't mean we don't like you. It means for some reason you haven't officially joined the role of the church, and we will make up for that oversight in the narthex after this service. Stepping out and making a sacrificial pledge is certainly a move that is based in God's economy instead of our own. This is one of those very opportunities to stand and bear witness to a way other than the way of fear and of scarcity and of hoarding and of maybe I'll need it one day and of not enough. How many other things can we think of that are at this very moment competing? Other things, other needs, other wants, other desires, competing for our limited resources. And yet I am brazen enough to stand here and ask that you make St. Mary's, that you make church your priority. Church, not one among many competing things, but first above all. Because church is unlike any other organization that we're a part of. Lots of groups want our money. We're all inundated constantly with requests. But this community and what we do here in this place and what we are given is wholly unlike anything that PETA can offer you, as worthwhile as it may be, or the United Way, as wonderful as it may be, or the Kiwanis, as helpful as they may be. Because in this place, in this community, we are reminded of the reality of God's bottomless supply of grace. Because in this place, unlike anywhere else, we are fed with that same manna, that same bread of heaven, the food of eternity. I don't care how good lunch is at Rotary, you don't get that. This is where our limitations and our fears and our anxieties can be broken open and healed by that balm in Gilead that never runs dry. And so next week I ask you to come back to this place for Celebration Sunday at 10 o'clock, because there's only one service next week. At 10 a.m., come back on Celebration Sunday, ready to place your sacrificial pledge up there on that altar with all your brothers and sisters here in Christ across all three of our regular Sunday services gathered into one. And then after we are done, and then after we are fed in return, we will go outside and we're going to have a party. Because God's economy of plenty is most certainly worth celebrating. There is hope enough for every sinner. There is peace enough for all the anxious and despondent. And there is love enough for all. Period. God's economy is not our own. For that we say, thanks be to God.